The skies above the submerged world roared with the tumult of warships locked in deadly embrace, the swirling aerial currents bending and twisting the very fabric of the battle. Captain Rourke stood at the helm of the Harbinger, his eyes narrowed against the biting wind that whipped through the rigging and tore at his dark coat. His face, weathered and scarred by battles past, betrayed none of the inner turmoil that churned beneath his calm exterior. Today, he was no longer the disgraced commander, shunned by the airborne sailing community. Today, he was a man fighting for redemption, for honor, and for the very fate of the ghost helm that lay buried deep within his ship's hold. Across the swirling currents, a silhouette emerged from the hazeless sleek, black hull of Captain Varek's skyship, the Nightshade. Its silver buckles glinted ominously in the pale sunlight that filtered through the clouds. And from the deck, the rival captain's cruel smile was unmistakable. Varek was a man who thrived on conquest, his cold, calculating eyes fixed on the prize that had eluded him for too long, the ghost helm. Rumors whispered of the helm's curse, but to Varek it was simply another trophy to cement his dominance over the skies. The Harbinger groaned as the wind caught its tattered sails, the ship's battered frame protesting the strain. First Mate Elara moved swiftly across the deck, her fiery red hair a stark contrast against the steel-grey sky. Her voice rang out, sharp and commanding, "Prepare for engagement. All hands brace for impact." Engineer Mags appeared at her post, grease-stained hands ready to tend to the engines and make quick repairs as the battle unfolded. Her skepticism about the helm's curse had not wavered, but now, faced with the reality of the duel, her focus was absolute. The two ships circled each other warily, the currents tugging at their hulls, as if the very air sought to tip the balance. Cannon fire erupted suddenly, a deafening roar that shattered the tense silence and sent splinters flying. Rourke's hands tightened on the wheel as he barked orders, evasive maneuvers, steady the sails, return fire. The dance of death continued, each captain testing the other's skill, searching for an opening. Varek's shots were precise, cutting through rigging and tearing into the Harbinger's hull. But Rourke's experience and intimate knowledge of the aerial currents gave him an edge. With a deft tilt of the wheel and a shout to the crew, the Harbinger dipped into a sudden dive, the wind screaming in protest as the ship lurched. Elara's sharp voice cut through the chaos. "Now, Captain, fire the starboard cannons." The salvo lit the sky, the cannonballs striking the Nightshade with devastating effect. Varek snarled, his ship shuddering as it lost altitude, but he was not defeated yet. With a grim smile, he veered toward the Harbinger for a final, desperate ram. Rourke met the charge head-on, their ships colliding with a shudder that reverberated through the bones of every man and woman aboard. Splinters flew, metal groaned, and amidst the swirling smoke and flying debris, the two captains locked eyes, each a mirror of defiance and determination. Minutes stretched into eternity as the battle raged on, but eventually the tide turned. The Harbinger, though battered and leaking, held firm, while the Nightshade faltered, its sails torn and engines sputtering. Varek gave a final furious glare before ordering a retreat, his dark ship slipping back into the mists. Silence fell over the deck, broken only by the labored breathing of the crew and the creaking of the wounded Harbinger. Rourke remained at the helm, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows and illuminating the path ahead. "Is everyone accounted for?" he asked, voice hoarse but steady. Elara nodded, exhaustion etched into her face. "Aye, Captain. We've taken hits, but we're still flying." Mags wiped grime from her brow, a rare smile breaking through. "Could be worse. We've got work to do, but we're not done yet." Rourke's eyes drifted downward, toward the sealed chamber where the ghost helm rested, its dark surface glinting faintly. The Victory was a small beacon of hope amid the gathering storm of curses and shadows that haunted their path. "This isn't over," he muttered to himself, the weight of the helm heavier than ever, "but we'll see this through. For the crew, for the helm, and for the honor I've lost." As the Harbinger limped forward, sailing into uncertain skies, the echoes of the duel lingered in the winter promise of battles yet to come and the relentless pursuit of redemption. Suddenly, from the crow's nest, a lookout's voice rang out, "Captain, something's approaching fast on the horizon." Rourke's gaze sharpened, heart pounding with a mixture of dread and resolve. Whatever came next, he would face it head-on. The duel had ended, but the war for the ghost helm was far from over. The aftermath of the duel hung heavily over the Harbinger. The skyship, once proud and steady, now limped through the skies, its engines sputtering and groaning beneath the strain of damage. Captain Rourke stood on the main deck, his gaze fixed on the jagged tear in the starboard hull where the rival captain's blade had struck true. The wind carried the bitter temps of burnt metal and scorched wood, and the once lively hum of the ship's engines was reduced to a weak, uneven pulse. "We won't survive another encounter like that if this keeps up," Rourke muttered, turning to Myra Talon, the ship's engineer. She was already descending the ladder to the engine room, the faint clatter of her boots against the metal grate echoing like a heartbeat in the ship's wounded core. Mira worked quickly, her hands moving with practiced precision as she examined the engine's intricate mechanisms. The damage was extensive. Fractured gears, ruptured conduits, and scorched wiring threatened to silence the Harbinger forever. Sweat beaded on her forehead, mixing with the soot that streaked her face, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "This isn't just about fixing machines," she said quietly, almost to herself. "It's about keeping us all alive." Rourke followed her down into the belly of the ship, the heat of the engine room contrasting sharply with the cool air above. The air was thick with the scent of oil and burnt copper. Sparks flew as Myra replaced a fractured gear, her fingers deftly maneuvering the delicate components. The hum of the engines fluctuated. The ship groaned in protest, but slowly the rhythm began to stabilize. "We need more time, Jocelyn," the navigator called out nervously from the catwalk above. His pale face was drawn tight with worry. "The currents are shifting. If we don't get the engines back to full power soon, we'll be at the mercy of the haunted sea again." Mira didn't respond immediately. Concentration tightened her features as she worked to reroute power through the damaged conduits. Then, without warning, a surge of energy pulsed through the engine's core, and the familiar, steady hum returned. The Harbinger shuddered beneath their feet, steadying itself against the turbulent sky. A murmur of relief rippled through the crew gathered on the deck as the ship regained its strength. Rourke looked at Mira with a newfound respect, the hard lines of his face softening. "I owe you my thanks," he said. "You've saved us all." Myra shrugged, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "I'm just doing my job. But if we don't stick together now, none of us will make it much further." The silence between them was charged with unspoken understanding. Both carried burdens from their past's failures, regrets, and the heavy weight of survival but here. In the dim glow of the engine room, a fragile bond began to form. As night fell, the sky above the Harbinger stretched wide and endless, sprinkled with stars that shimmered like distant beacons. Mira stepped out onto the deck, the cool night air washing over her soot-streaked skin. She gazed upward, her breath steadying as she wrestled with the ghosts of her past mistakes. But beneath the weight of doubt blossomed a quiet flame of resolve. The Harbinger had been wounded, but it was not broken. Neither was she. The crew settled in for the night, the ship now humming steadily beneath them, a fragile promise of hope in a world fraught with danger. Yet, the shadow of the ghost helm lingered, an ever-present reminder that the journey ahead would demand more than skill and courage. It would require sacrifice, trust, and unyielding determination. Captain Rourke stood at the helm, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Tomorrow we press on," he vowed, "for the helm, for the crew, and for the chance to reclaim what we've lost." And with that, the Harbinger sailed on into the silent night, its engines strong, its crew united, and the whispered curse of the ghost helm echoing faintly on the wind. The next dawn brought with it a fragile peace. Mira moved through the ship with renewed purpose, checking and rechecking every system. The crew's skepticism had not vanished overnight, but her actions spoke louder than words. She was no longer just the sharp-tongued engineer who doubted the legends. She was the lifeblood of the Harbinger, the one who had breathed new life into their battered vessel. In the mess hall, murmurs of gratitude and grudging respect circled among the crew. Josen approached Myra cautiously, his usual nervous energy tempered by relief. "I didn't think we'd make it through the night," he admitted. "You saved us." Mira allowed herself a small smile, though the weight of responsibility pressed still. "We all have a part to play," she replied, "and there's still a long way to go." As the ship glided through the shifting aerial currents, Rourke convened the crew to discuss the next phase of their mission. The duel had taken its toll, but it had also galvanized them. The rival captain's challenge was a stark reminder of the stakes involved and the enemies that awaited. "We're not just fighting for this helm," Rourke said, voice steady and commanding. "We're fighting for our lives, our honor, and the future of the submerged world." The crew listened, their faces a mixture of determination and wariness. Myra caught Rourke's eye and nodded once, a silent pledge of solidarity. But, as the Harbinger sailed onward, the curse of the ghost helm whispered in the wind, a reminder that redemption would come at a price and that the true battle was far from over. The sky darkened suddenly, shadows lengthening as a distant rumble echoed through the clouds. The crew stiffened, hands moving to weapons and controls. The next challenge was approaching, and the Harbinger had to be ready. Mira wiped the grime from her hands and moved toward the engine room, where the heart of the ship awaited her steady touch. The duel had tested their strength, but it was the trials ahead that would define them all. With a deep breath, she stepped inside, the hum of the engine steady beneath her feet. The night was far from over. The sky had darkened with unnatural speed, the sunlight swallowed by thick, swirling clouds that churned with an eerie luminescence. Captain Rourke stood at the helm of the Harbinger, his grip tightening around the polished wood as the first gusts of the phantom gale whipped through the rigging. The air thickened with a biting chill, carrying whispers that seemed to slither through the ship's timbers. Murmurs of long-lost souls bound to the cursed ghost helm. "Hold fast," Rourke barked, voice cutting through the rising howl. Around him, the crew scrambled, their faces pale but resolute. Marek, the navigator, dashed to the starboard side, clutching his charts and sextant, eyes darting to the erratic compass, needle spinning wildly. "The currents are shifting," he shouted over the storm's roar. "This isn't any natural tempest." Alara's sharp voice rang out from below decks. "Engines are fluctuating. The surge is tearing through the turbines. If we lose power, we're dead in the air." Rourke's jaw clenched. "Keep her steady, Alara. Marek, adjust the sails to the northeast current. We need to ride this out, not fight it." The ship groaned under the strain, sails billowing like monstrous wings as the spectral gale intensified. Lightning crackled across the sky, illuminating ghostly shapes swirling in the clouds' faces twisted in silent screams, eyes hollow and accusing. The crew's breaths came in ragged gasps, hearts pounding in rhythm with the thunder's growl. In the midst of the chaos, the mysterious passengers stepped forward onto the deck, robes billowing as if alive. Their voice, low and melodic, began to chant in a tongue unknown but ancient. The crew paused momentarily, caught between fear and fascination. The winds seemed to respond, the howl softening just enough to grant a sliver of control. "What manner of sorcery is this?" Ilara muttered, eyes wide as she wiped sweat and grime from her brow. Rourke didn't answer aloud. Instead, he focused every ounce of his will on the helm, feeling the cursed artifacts pulled beneath the deck. The ghost helm's dark influence was stronger than ever, feeding the storm, yet here was a glimmer of resistance. Together, the crew worked in concert. Marek recalibrated their course to glide with the aerial currents rather than against them. Ilara stabilized the engines, her hands steady despite the chaos, and the passengers' chant grew louder, weaving a fragile shield against the gale's rage. Hours stretched like eons as the Harbinger danced on the edge of destruction. Ropes snapped, sails tore, and the deck slickened with rain and sweat, but the ship held. Slowly, the storm began to wane, the ghostly faces fading into the mist, the oppressive weight on the crew's spirits lifting. As dawn broke, pale and trembling, Captain Rourke surveyed the battered but unbroken vessel. His crew gathered around him, exhausted but alive, their eyes reflecting a shared understanding they had faced the phantom gale and survived. But the curse's shadow loomed larger than ever. "This storm was no mere weather," Rourke said quietly, voice hoarse but resolute. "It is a warning and a test. We will need to be stronger, smarter, and more united than ever if we are to deliver the ghost helm and survive the skies ahead." Ilara nodded, wiping grime from her face. "We've tasted the curse's fury. Now we know what we're up against." Marek glanced toward the horizon, where the sky slowly cleared to a fragile blue. "And whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The mysterious passengers' eyes gleamed beneath their hood, a faint smile playing on their lips. "The winds are restless, but so are we." As the Harbinger surged forward, battered but unyielding, the crew prepared for the battles yet to come. The phantom gale had tested their mettle land, unveiled new secrets of the cursed helm that would shape their journey into the unknown. The ship creaked and groaned, sails fluttering like the wings of a wounded bird, but the course was set. Beyond the haunted sea, beyond the spectral storms, lay their destiny, and Captain Rourke, once disgraced, now stood ready to claim it. Yet, in the swirling skies, shadows moved, whispers of darker forces gathering strength. The phantom gale was but a prelude, a harbinger of storms yet to come. The Harbinger sailed on into the heart of the curse. The sea's surface shimmered like molten glass beneath the pale morning sun, the floating island's shadow casting a cool veil over the Harbinger as it drifted lazily in the calm aerial currents. Captain Rourke stood at the bow, eyes narrowed against the bright light, the weight of the helm's curse pressing heavily upon his shoulders. The crew had agreed, with a mixture of reluctance and grim determination, to explore beneath the waves near the island. It was their only hope of uncovering the helm's true nature and perhaps a way to end the doom that clung to it. "Prepare the diving gear," Rourke ordered, his voice steady despite the knot of anxiety tightening in his gut. Ela, the engineer, nodded sharply, already moving toward the storage hold where the cumbersome breathing apparatus lay packed. Marin, the navigator, stood nearby, clutching his compass, eyes flickering with a restless energy, while Eli's, the mysterious passenger, remained cloaked in their shimmering fabric, their silver eyes reflecting the ocean's depths. The team gathered on the deck, tension humming in the salty air. Rourke handed out the breathing masks and secured the weights to their belts. "Stay close. We don't know what lies beneath," he warned, his gaze settling on each member. "And be ready for anything." One by one, they slipped over the side, the cold embrace of the submerged world swallowing them. The underwater currents were gentle here, but the light fractured into dancing beams that revealed a haunting vista. Scattered ruins of what once must have been a thriving settlement, now claimed by the sea and time. Barnacle-encrusted pillars jutted from the seabed, their surfaces etched with indecipherable glyphs and faded murals. Fish and curious sea creatures darted through the wreckage, their scales glinting like jewels. Isla moved with practiced ease, brushing away sediment from a moss-covered tablet. "Look at this," she murmured, holding the tablet close to Eli's. The cryptic symbols seemed to pulse faintly beneath their touch. "It's old, older than any record we've seen." Ellis's voice was low but clear, translating with fluid precision. "The ghost helm binds the bearer to a cycle of ruin and despair. Only through the sacred rite beneath the rising sun can the curse be broken. But those who seek this path must first face the guardians of the deep." A shiver ran through the group. The prophecy was as chilling as it was hopeful. Rourke's mind raced. The cursed helm, the doomed ships, the spectral legends they had heard whispered among the islands. Here, in these forgotten relics, lay a sliver of salvation. Suddenly, the water around them darkened. Shadows swirled like smoke, coalescing into ghostly forms that drifted with unnatural grace. The spectral guardians of the ruins had awoken, their hollow eyes fixed upon the intruders. "Back!" Rourke shouted as the shapes closed in, the water vibrating with an eerie hum. The crew swam desperately, their lungs burning as they fought against the pull of the currents and the ominous presence closing in. Bursting through the surface, gasping and drenched, they hauled themselves aboard the Harbinger, hearts pounding and spirits shaken. Yet beneath the fear, a fire of determination burned brighter than ever. The ancient knowledge was theirs now, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. That night, in the ship's cramped quarters, Rourke spread the tablet and other relics on the weathered table, tracing the symbols with a calloused finger. Illa and Merrin bent close, eager to understand. Eli's watched, their silver eyes reflecting the flickering lantern light. "We have a chance," Rourke said quietly, voice thick with resolve. "A way to break the curse, but it won't be easy." Outside, the haunted sea whispered against the hull, its secrets far from fully revealed. The Harbinger carried its burden onward into the depths of the submerged world, and toward a fate that only the bravest could dare to challenge. But as the crew prepared for what lay ahead, none could shake the lingering question: would the ritual be enough to save them, or was the ghost helm's doom inevitable? The answer, like the depths beneath the waves, remained shrouded in mystery, waiting to rise with the next dawn. The cabin of the Harbinger was cloaked in shadows, pierced only by the flickering light of a single oil lamp swinging gently with the ship's steady rhythm. Captain Rourke stood rigid, his sharp grey eyes locked onto the figure seated across from him, Lyra, the mysterious passenger who had thus far maintained an inscrutable silence. Her presence a constant enigma aboard the weathered skyship. Tonight, however, the air was thick with unspoken truths, and the weight of secrecy was about to unravel. Lyra's fingers tightened around the edge of the wooden table, knuckles whitening as she slowly pulled back the dark hood that had concealed her face. The light caught the striking emerald of her eyes, vibrant, almost luminescent in the dim glow. A hush fell over the small gathering as the crew, summoned by Rourke's summons, filed in silently, drawn by the gravity of the moment. "I have carried this secret for too long," Lyra began, her voice steady but layered with an undercurrent of sorrow. "I am the last descendant of the original keepers of the ghost Helm." A ripple of astonished murmurs swept through the room. Joran, the navigator, blinked rapidly, disbelief etched across his sun-baked face. Mara, the engineer, folded her arms, her usual sharp tongue silenced by the weight of the revelation. "The helm you carry," Lyra continued, "is not merely a cursed artifact. It is a vessel of power, bound by our ancestors to contain a malevolent force that could unravel the skies themselves. The curse is real, and it is far more dangerous than any of you imagined." Rourke's mind raced. The tales he had heard, the whispered legends, the eerie occurrences aboard the Harbinger, all suddenly coalesced into a chilling certainty. This was no ordinary cargo. It was a legacy of doom and duty intertwined. "Why reveal this now?" Rourke asked, his voice low but firm, the captain in him wrestling with the flood of questions. "Because," Lyra said, her gaze unwavering, "our pursuers draw near. Those who seek to reclaim the helm for their own dark designs have tracked us through the currents. They will not stop until the helm is theirs, and all who defy them are doomed." The room's atmosphere shifted palpably. The crew exchanged glances laden with tension and fear, their earlier suspicions now underscored by urgent reality. Joran stepped forward, his voice edged with skepticism yet tinged with reluctant acceptance. "If what you say is true, then our mission changes. We're not just delivering cursed cargo, we're guardians of a fragile balance." Mara nodded in agreement, the fire of her resolve kindling anew. "Then we'll need to be smarter, faster, and more united than ever. No room for mistakes." Rourke inhaled deeply, the salty air filling his lungs as he moved to the deck. The night sky stretched endlessly above, stars shimmering like distant promises. He paced slowly, thoughts swirling like the airborne currents that carried them across the submerged world. This revelation altered everything. The helm was no longer a mere burden of doom, but a responsibility that touched the very fate of the skies. As the crew absorbed the truth, a distant rumble vibrated through the ship's timbers, a subtle yet unmistakable warning. Lyra's eyes darted to the horizon, where the dark outline of ominous ships began to take form against the starlit canvas. "They're coming," she said, voice barely above a whisper, but charged with urgency. Rourke's jaw clenched. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but retreat was not an option. He squared his shoulders and addressed his crew, the captain's authority rekindling like a flame. "We face new enemies, old curses, and our own fears. But we sail together, bound by a mission heavier than any helm. Prepare yourselves. The real journey begins now." The Harbinger shuddered as the distant threat closed in, and the crew braced themselves against the storm of secrets, shadows, and the relentless pursuit that would test their resolve to its breaking point. The mystery of the helm had been unveiled, but its legacy was far from over, and the skies held their breath, waiting.